Coming up this morning on the Dattitude podcast. Since y'all seem to love the keep car or tank with the rat debate, we decided to extend it for another episode. And judging by the hate mail I got the past 2 days, this show should drive my blood pressure into the danger zone within the next hour. But have no fear. Larry Holder and Gabe Henderson are here. So they'll keep me in check. I have my medicine ready and my water bottle is full. So let's get this party rolling.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, Dattitude family? And welcome to another hour of We Love the Rat, presented by Orkin. Oh, wait. That's not what the script says. It says, welcome to Dattitude, episode number 347, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Wednesday, February the 19th, 2025. I am your host, Jim Derry, 34 plus years in the New Orleans sports media scene, getting kicked in the face every which way. But I'm still sticking up for you guys who still love me. There's like 4 of you. And I thank you for being a part of the ever-growing Dattitude family. What is on the show today? We got Larry Holder today. Our old friend Larry Holder is coming on. Last time he'll be on in this season. Last time before we go on vacation. He was supposed to be on last week, but he got sick. I saw him at the Super Bowl and he was sick. I didn't realize he was sick till after I shook his hand, so I was praying. I think I made it through okay. Here we are. Anyway, he's coming on today. You know what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about Carr versus the Rat versus the stupid rumors, which are just insanely asinine about Aaron Rodgers potentially being a Saint. If you believe that's a possibility, then I got all kinds of swampland to sell you. You can figure out how to put a bridge over swampland because I have no idea. Maybe go down somewhere down Highway 1 in Grand Isle area. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, got a lot of comments. I'm sure it's coming. It'll be a sort of a mono-E Wednesday. We will definitely be talking to you. I'll share some of my hate mail with you from the other day. It was fun. I mean, people just sometimes I think they're not really talking to a real person when they leave these comments. You know? A lot of times they either don't come back or they're like, oh, whoa, you know, that kind of thing when they comment. That's the problem with social media today, too. Well, there's lots of problems with social media. I'm not going to get into all that. Interesting morning before we get started. It was one of those mornings where I just couldn't get up. I had a game last night. I worked most of yesterday working on some things, trying to get some things straight. I know a bunch of y'all, Gabe told me that some of y'all said, I know I still have Brandon Ingram is in the open. I'm trying to get that fixed. I got to make a new open. I've been working on trying to get some stuff together to get a new open. We only have 2 episodes left after today in season 4. So I got to make a new open anyway, but I'm working on that. We will update that. Yeah. So, and I had a game last night, really good high school basketball game. St. Paul's, Warren Easton teams were fighting for a playoff spot. The Eagles of Easton won that one. Hadn't seen Coach Darius Mims in a long time. That was fun. This morning I had to bring one kid to the orthodontist. The other one left her lunchbox at home. So driving all over before I'm getting ready for the show. So that was fun. But anyway, with the comments, I think the good news is we have more members of the Dattitude family. Bad news is I think they might be troublemakers. Y'all might have to keep them in line. A reminder, no show on Friday. I'm doing career day at my daughter's school to show you how many times they were told no, how many times they had to reach in the bucket before they got me. I mean, from what I understand, they got told by 250 moms and dads, no, I don't have time for that. And so they're like, all right, Derry, you're up. We don't have anybody else. So can you come do career day? I don't know what I'm going to tell these kids. Maybe y'all can help me out in the comments. What should I tell these kids about Maybe what not to do for a career. Piss off people. That's what I do. What is your career? What do you do for a living? I piss off people. We'll see. All right, let's get to a few comments before. You can be a part of the show, by the way. If you don't know this, if you're new to the family, type in your comment on YouTube or Facebook. But if you're watching on Facebook, we would appreciate it. The only way to become a real member of the Dattitude family and to get reminders when we go on the air live, which is normally Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time, is to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page, which is ever growing. One of these days, I'm going to get back to doing regular shorts. I just haven't had the time. But those will also be on YouTube. We also have a TikTok page. You can get in touch with me on X at Jim Derry Jr. via email at the Advocate, jderry at theadvocate.com. Okay, what we got this morning? Brian Esteve is first. Good morning, Who Dat Nation. UBN. Oh, boy. More Rattler, but we don't know talk, whatever that means, UBN. You love to get involved in all that. And he says, oh, and P.S. this weather sucks. I like it. I don't like the rain. But, look, the whole nation is dealing with it. It's actually probably warmer here in New Orleans, even though temperature, what is it right now in Mandeville? It is 51, a little chilly degrees. It's going to be in the 20s tonight up here and 30s in the city. It is what it is. Kyle Sherman, good morning. And keep Carr. We're going to get to that. You jumping the gun. Good morning, Rocky. UBN says hate mail. I get hate. I got more than usual. I actually get a decent amount of hate mail. You'd be surprised. A-Town, good morning. And Mark Gapsky, good morning from Vegas. Probably not that cold in Vegas. What's the temperature in Vegas? I'm going to guess 62. You can tell me how close that was. All right, we're going to have more comments and definitely get into the talk. I got a chart to show you guys. I'm going to read some of my hate mail from this past show. By the way, this show last week, I have not got the numbers, the final numbers for Monday's show yet, but last week was two of our best shows we've ever done. They weren't the most watched shows, but they were up there. And the fact that we had two back-to-back, total of 27, right around 27,000 viewers for the two shows last week. So the YouTube page is really starting to grow. That's where we want the family. We can't do this without you. So thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family. And look, even if you listen to the podcast after the fact, those numbers count as well. So again, we had a little more than 27,000 for Monday and Wednesday of last week. And I know Monday's show did really well too. So we'll see how today's goes. All right, before we get to the rest of the show, let me tell you about our friends at Evangeline Securities. Of course, they are a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business. And just as importantly, they can figure out what that business is worth. In fact, maybe more importantly, they can tell you what that business is worth. If that is you or someone you know, it's time to reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ron Hemel. They will start by scheduling a complimentary valuation from their offices, either on Poydras Street or in Lafayette. From there, you'll be well-informed to begin to make the decision on if you want to proceed. What happens after that? Well, if you go with Evangeline, you'll always be drafting 32nd because that's where the Super Bowl winner picks. You won't have to worry about this nonsense of whether to tank. You're always going to be picking 32nd. Sounds good, right? Well, we'll tell you a little bit more later on. So in the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelisecurities.com. Oh, how close was I? I said 62, complete guess at 61. Man, there you go. Got something right today. Daryl Romero, great show. Always agree. You always agree with me? Man, I find that hard to believe, but I thank you, Daryl. I think the Saints are going to be okay. I do too. I think the Saints are going to be okay. Christian says, don't mention being on YouTube. They will check me and probably have more views on their gaming channels. Maybe. All right, what did somebody, again, before Larry comes on? What up, big dog? Hakeem's here. You're here early today. That's good news. Gabe Henderson said, I felt like 21 in Houston on his morning dog walk. Perfect temperature for UBN. He loves it when it's that cold. All right, let's go with just go through some of these comments. And you know what? I'm going to put my glasses on. Hope y'all don't mind. This small type on YouTube. I'm just going to tell you some of my favorites. I love when people say that I said things that I didn't say. Okay. Luke and I were talking about what might be possible at number 9 and who the Saints, whatever, blah, blah, blah. YHWH Jesus 777. So he loves himself some Jesus, but he's also a gambler, I'm guessing. 777, whatever. Both of these guys said they wouldn't take Shedeur or Cam Ward at number 9. That's not what we said. We said Shedeur and Cam Ward would not be available at number 9. They'd be going, please, and lots of E's and A's and S's. Don't delete this video. Okay, we won't. We don't delete any video. I can't wait to come back to this. And then my favorite part, there's no doubt in my mind both of you thought Lamar couldn't play quarterback and wouldn't want to draft Lamar. Well, what I've been saying about Lamar Jackson since he got in the league, basically. He can't win a big game. You're right. I wouldn't have wanted to draft Lamar Jackson. First of all, he would have been sitting on the bench till Drew Brees retired. So what would that have done for you? Anyway, that's just one of them. Here's another one. It's me, CTW. And it's edited. I don't know what it said before he edited it. I have no idea. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's too long. And by the way, you can go find these comments it's on the last episode. I replied to some of them. It's my opinion. Get rid of garbage. That's a new one. For you to say you've seen enough of Rattler, who is missing starters for those 6 games, says a lot about me, sir. What does it say? What does it say that I've seen enough of Rattler in 6 games to know that he can't play quarterback in the NFL? I mean, if he had gone 1-5 instead of 0-6, maybe I'd feel differently. I doubt it. I'm not going to read the rest of it. You can go find it. Jasher Q2Q. Go with Rattler. Send Carr away. George Touche. Cut or trade Carr and Taysom Hill and Jordan and all the old and injured players on both offense and defense. Then trade back in the 2025 draft to get extra picks next year in the 2026 draft after all the dead weight, debt, salary cap problems are gone. Here's the problem with that, George, if you're watching. You can't just do that. Cutting Carr, you didn't listen to the show. Cutting Carr and or Taysom Hill and or Cam Jordan and or whoever else you want to cut. Now, granted, I didn't really understand this the other day. We talked about it. But cutting those guys doesn't save you anything, okay? And not only that, you can't get cap compliant by just cutting those guys. You're going to have to keep some of them to rework salary because you're going to have – I know Carr haters don't want to hear this. I keep saying this. You don't understand this. The fanboy podcasts are already – they're eating it up, man. They're putting Rattler on their front page and stuff. They're trying to jump in to get those people who love Rattler to watch their show and forget about everybody else. It's not going to happen. It's part of the reason why we talk about common sense. The Saints are almost forced to keep Carr, okay? I know that Luke said the other day, 55% chance that they keep Carr. Zach Ewing said 70%. I'll ask Larry what he thinks. The number is higher than 55%, I promise you. I will be shocked. And again, I know I'm going on vacation, but I'll find a way to do a show. If they cut Carr or announce that they're going to cut Carr while I'm gone, before I come back from vacation, we will have a show. We'll have an impromptu show. Let's see. Christian says he's a fan. Mark wants to know, we're doing live NFL draft coverage all 3 days on YouTube for all 7 rounds. We're definitely doing the first night. The way we've been doing it is we did the first night, the entire draft, the entire first round. We're there the whole night. Then the second night, I think we kind of popped in and out. So I don't know the schedule yet. We'll talk about it. We will be doing something though, Mark. I promise you. Rocky says it sounds like Kellen Moore has an O lineman from Philly coming over. So if we draft Genty, we know Moore likes his RB. I never heard that. I don't know where they don't have any money to bring anybody over right now unless they make a trade. And even if they make a trade, you still got to have money. They don't have any money. Hakeem, Now, look, Hakeem and I don't always agree. Definitely a solid member of the Dattitude family here almost every day. Glad the hiring process is getting solidified. A good mixture of youth and experience. I like that. It's going to be easier to stomach the bad year coming up. Moore needs time to stamp his way on his team. Speaking of which, it should be reported today. Okay. I've been seeing it all over the X machine. I think it's going to happen today. Also, we've been talking about it amongst the core of people at NOLA.com. Looks like Nussmeier. Looks like Doug Nussmeier will be named offensive coordinator today. What role will he play? Will he play the same role as Pete Carmichael played? Or will he play a bigger role than that? We'll see. I like it, though. I like Doug Nussmeier coming over, and a former Saint to boot. Brandon Staley is being interviewed. I'm not sure if he's interviewed already or will today. It would be a surprise now, I think, if he doesn't become the defensive coordinator. Christian. Wow, I said your name correctly. How would I pronounce that? Is there another way to pronounce that? I don't know. Let's see what else we got here. Brian. Oh, the sky is falling. I didn't read the comment yet, but I know the sky is falling, Brian. They're so far behind with void years on contracts. It will be 2027 before they are clear. That's probably true, actually. By the way, Mike Thomas is still in the books. He is. Carr has voids to 2029, takes him to 2028, and so on. Yeah, but look, here's the thing. You're right and you're not right all at the same time. Will the books be cleared by the end of 2026? No. But they're in such a good position for 2027 that even if you extend some of this a little bit, they're going to be okay. Okay. So 2027 is the year you really need to look at. Again, I got a chart to show y'all in a little bit of why tanking is not the answer. Okay. In my opinion. Now, I have no idea what Larry's going to say. I have a sneaky suspicion. And then Gabe and I are going to talk about it as well later. So we're going to, but again, I got a chart. I don't want to show it just yet because I'm not ready to get there yet. But here's the thing. I mean, this is the worst. This might be the worst year that any team has had draft-wise. They brought it upon themselves. I'm not taking up for anybody. I'll agree with Randall to the extent of they dug the team, and Mickey Loomis and everybody else involved dug themselves this hole. They got themselves in this position. They're going to have to extend some of these guys. They're going to have to re-sign them simply for the sole purpose of extending their contracts. Maybe you can talk Cam Jordan into taking a pay cut. Maybe. I don't know. Steven Gondron. Is it Gondron or Gondron? What the trash? I guess that's trash. The trash on defense. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Do you mean maybe by players, or are you talking about Brandon Staley? I think at this point, Lord knows that I've been as hard on Brandon Staley as anybody. But I think he's probably a decent defensive coordinator and certainly willing to give him a chance to be that. I mean, he worked with the 49ers last year. Going to come here. Be the second straight year Saints get an Saints get an assistant coach from San Francisco. Let's hope this one works out a little bit better than the last one did. But what's going to happen is Paulson Adebo going to leave, or is he going to stay? Saints might need a defensive back. Kool-Aid's definitely going to be, well, I can't say definitely. I mean, you would think that Kool-Aid's going to become a starter now. Maybe that's part of the reason why they drafted Kool-Aid. Maybe they saw that Adebo was going to probably leave. I don't know. We'll see. Brian S. Steve, Carr gives us the best chance to win next year. Let's see what Moore can do with Carr. I agree. Trade back into the draft, get more ammo for next year. Give us a chance to get a quarterback for the future in 2026. I think that's the best case scenario, in my opinion. Mark Gapsky, draft Genty and Dart. I'm okay with Genty. I just don't think you get anything out of drafting a quarterback this year, in my opinion. Depends on where. Look, if you get to the third round and Dart's still there, which I don't think is going to happen because he's shooting up the draft boards, maybe. But I don't think you can't afford, in my opinion, to take a quarterback before the third round. I just don't. Daryl Romero says, anyone that really knows football knows you can't cut all these older players. You have to work with what you created. Work with what you created. Our coach knows exactly what he's getting into. Relax, people. Of course he does. You don't come in here. You don't just you think that they haven't done their research. You don't think Kellen Moore says, I just want a head coaching job. I don't care what I'm getting in. He knows what he's getting into. Of course he does. Shane says, finally back, able to catch a live show. Welcome back. Keep Carr for another year with Rattler, build O-line and D-line draft. Top running back with first pick, sign MVP. And Debo will get better. What am I missing? Got to get to Larry in just a minute, but JC says, what up from Denver? Hello, JC. And Shane says, agrees with Brian's comments. Kool-Aid. Cannon McGee says, Kool-Aid was Lattimore replacement. Yeah. Maybe multiple people replacement. And then Brian says, Staley did DC for Rams Super Bowl when they were really good, so he's got that going for him. I think he was gone when they went to the Super Bowl. I think he was already the Chargers coach by then. But he helped build that defense. Then Who Dat Daddy, welcome to the show. All right, it's time to get moving here going forward. Our friend Larry Holder, for the final time in this season 4, is with us. He is over the flu, or at least most of the way there. He's sitting upright. Larry Holder, what's going on?
Yeah, it's funny. That is, I felt ill during Super Bowl week, and there's no stopping. So
No.
that was quite the challenge. So much so where I'm probably feeling 100% for the first time since maybe the Thursday before the Super Bowl. Like, so it's taken a toll. I know a lot of people have gotten it. So yeah, it hit hard, and it's not because of partying.
Yeah.
People, oh yeah, I'm like, no. I'm like,
the older you get, the harder it is to get over stuff. So I had it over Christmas week, and I got to be honest, I don't think I'm just now really feeling completely over it. It lingered for many weeks, but anyway, we do what we got to do. We're living. We're here. We're living the dream, Larry Holder.
Yes. Whose dream though? I don't know.
The Saints' dream. Is it really?
I don't think they dreamt this. I really don't think they dreamt this. They dreamt like maybe winning a Super Bowl in the Superdome. That could have happened maybe a week or two ago, but that, obviously that did not.
I mean, maybe they'll win the Super Bowl in the Superdome in 2031. Who knows? I mean,
there's a chance.
That's when Duncan says it's coming back next, so we'll see. All right, look, let's get into some things here before we get into the topic of the day, which is labeled at the top: chance to win or shoot for Arch Manning. That is the topic of the day. But reports around that Doug Nussmeier will be named offensive coordinator as early as today, potentially. He is certainly interviewed. He's been the top candidate. We've been talking about him. Doug Nussmeier, a former Saint, and he was coaching with Kellen Moore last year. I think that would be a pretty interesting hire, and it would be no surprise.
No, and that's it's funny that Kellen's going after some of the Eagles staff, which that tends to happen, but sometimes you have coaches who block that. But this would be a promotion for Nussmeier. And what if they're gonna hire Doug? Why don't they draft Garrett?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
the question. Chance to win or shoot for Garrett Nussmeier.
The difference is, I think that Garrett Nussmeier, and look, we don't even know if Arch is going to be available because he's not necessarily going to make himself available for the 2026 draft.
I would assume he will not be. I'm betting he plays 2 years in Austin.
I think it's a strong possibility. So we say that, and he may not. I mean, I think it's at least 50-50. That being said, though, I mean, unless Garrett Nussmeier kind of pulls a Jaden Daniels and really just balls out, Garrett Nussmeier might be a guy that is kind of available where the Saints are picking now.
Well, right. And there's definitely eyes on him in terms of being a top quarterback prospect after this coming season. I mean, there's no question that people see that he has like physical skills, like, and you just got to rein it in. I think that's the thing that you need to do. Like, but he has certainly the arm talent. Like he's not super athletic, but he's not unathletic. So he can move if he has to. And I think that they could probably implement that. But there's no doubt eyes are going to be on him, especially given, and I know I was on when waiting to come on when y'all were talking about, say, Jackson Dart and these quarterbacks. This class is what it is. Like, all you got to do is go to the Athletic, go look at Dane Brugler's big board. The first quarterback listed is at number 15. Like, it's not there's not a top. This is like going to be like a couple of years ago when Kenny Pickett was maybe like in the 20s in terms of where he is on a big board. Right. But that being said, you could easily have Cam Ward going 1, 2, 3. I don't know. Shedeur Sanders too. Like, so that's the thing. Like, people are desperate for quarterbacks. They're going to reach this year.
Oh, one of the haters told me I was how dumb I was to think those two guys might be available at number 9.
That's not dumb, actually.
The hate mail I got the other day was ridiculous. Anyway,
because talent-wise, that's the thing. They're not top 10. Like,
no, I agree.
Talent, they're not.
But will they go top 10? They very well could. But there's I think Cam Ward's got an excellent chance to be going in the. I mean, I don't know that he makes it past the Giants. If he gets to the Giants, Giants will probably take him. But
I don't think he does either. And I don't think say Shedeur Sanders gets past the Raiders.
Yeah. No, I agree. So they probably will, but there's nothing to say. I mean, we see it every year, and more often than not, it's a quarterback that drops that's supposed to go in the top 5 and then drops to the 20. We see it all the time. It happens almost every year. So
it's that draft I just alluded to in 2022. I mean, people were trying to put Matt Corral and Malik Willis as first round guys, and those guys fell to round 3. So and that we see how that worked out for both of those guys. Matt Corral got hurt, and Malik Willis he's already on a different team playing backup for the Packers. Apathy says Garrett Nussmeier needs to show me he can throw an 8-yard pass and not 15 plus yards attempts every throw. I mean, part of that is what they're coaching him to do, right? Right. I think that's part of it too, but also you do need to learn how to rein it in. I mean, look, look at your Super Bowl quarterbacks. I mean, you had Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. They're not going downfield all the time. Like, that's just not, that's not conducive. You know who actually does go downfield a ton? And he saw his numbers fall a little bit, but also that it didn't help that his top receiver was out for almost the whole year. Brock Purdy is a guy who he doesn't have a ton of arm strength. He still likes to go down the field a lot. Brandon Ayuk, that really hurt him.
That's youth too. I mean, that's youth. So I think Purdy's going to grow up with that. But look, I think that Garrett Nussmeier can be an NFL quarterback. But we're going to see a lot. This year, LSU should be better. It's going to depend on. It's going to be a lot on his shoulders there. Look, he's going to have another great receiving core. His offensive line has taken some hits, but LSU always seems to reload at offensive line, or at least they have in the recent past. So we'll find out a lot about him. But Garrett Nussmeier is not a guy that you're going to have to be in the top 5, in my opinion, unless something changes over the course of the year. Right now, he's the Heisman favorite. But even if he wins the Heisman, I don't know if that's going to put him in the top 5 or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think it helps that he's an LSU quarterback. Like, who would have ever thought we would have ever said that? Like, it helps that he's an LSU quarterback because they have pedigree with Joe and, of course, Jaden. But look, Garrett is a different guy than Joe and is a different guy than Jaden.
That's right.
But for his credit, like, he's had playing time now. Like, so you saw from year 1, Joe Burrow started to year 2. You saw from year 1, Jaden Daniels at LSU to year 2. Like, can Garrett make that jump? I'm not gonna say no, he can't. Like, I think you're learning on the job. And I do think that he is someone that so many people are going to keep an eye on because he is physically gifted for sure. It's decision making and all of that. Like, he needs to kind of rein that in. Well, but there's no doubt. Like, after this year, like say if the Saints stick with Derek Carr, there's no doubt they're going to be looking at Garrett Nussmeier and
for sure
scouting him hard. No question.
No doubt. And look, Larry, I think that if you look at who Kellen Moore has coached over the past in his 3 jobs, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, I think Garrett Nussmeier could be a lot like Justin Herbert. I mean, I think he compares to him a little bit. He has that kind
Dak, or even Dak. Like Dak,
maybe Dak.
Dak's not a bad quarterback. That's the thing. Like, there's the stigma
Dak's
that Dak's
I think
bad.
look, he makes $60-something million a year. Although Trevor Lawrence does too, but that's a whole different story.
But no, look, I think I'm with you. He's not going to be. He's a little bit more like arm talent wise gifted than maybe Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts has all these different dynamics, and so he's a bit unicorny. But yeah, like Dak and Herbert are similar, and Garrett would fall more into that kind of mold.
Yeah, Charles says Nuss is a gunslinger. He is, but I think he can be whatever Kellen Moore would want him to be if that's the way it works out. I do think it would be an interesting scenario, though. And look, we'll see what happens this year, but who knows? Maybe the Saints will be better than a lot of people think they are, and that won't be an option. We'll have to,
or they'll be much worse, and then they'll
be much worse. Yeah,
like 3 or something crazy.
I mean, look, we got a long time before we even got to think about predictions. I want to see how this draft goes, but it's going to be an interesting offseason. There's no question about it. All right. On the defensive court, and again, we're going to get to the whole, should the Saints rework Carr or just cut him and $8 to $50 million, go with Rattler, and then shoot for what Larry was just talking about potentially could happen, because they go with Rattler. It can be a bad season. I'm just telling you. But we're going to get to that in a minute, but I do want to talk about also Brandon Staley interviewing for the defensive coordinator position. Another assistant coach that could come in, and I would be surprised if he doesn't get the DC job by the end of the week.
Yeah, that's the name. I know you and me discussed in the past. It might have been on Super Bowl Radio Row when we were doing the show, that his name was floating around, and it makes sense. Like it absolutely does. And he's also not stealing from the Eagles, which I'm sure Nick Sirianni would appreciate. But still, that makes sense. It's not, again, like a lot of these coaches. You see failed head coaches, but it's not like they're dumb football guys. Like Brandon Staley couldn't go in and coach a defense. I don't think there's any question in my mind that he could do that. So, and given just where you are with trying to build a staff, I mean, your pickings are slimmer, but I'm sure Kellen Moore already had in his back pocket, hey, if I'm going here, you build your staff. And so that's, he's not like scurrying. Like, I'm sure this was.
Yeah, and he kind of knew already. Yeah, like he knew already.
Right.
Here's.
So,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, look, like this is the scenario that I know a lot of Saints fans wanted. New blood all over the place. I know Nussmeier was drafted. Yes, I know you. And you like, just because Doug was drafted by the Saints, it's not real.
No.
Yeah. So like this is new. I mean, it's going to be outside of, but they hired Joel Thomas back, right, at running back coach. That then it blows the whole thing up. Nope. Doesn't. He shouldn't have been hired, right? He's
no. I'm okay with assistant coaches coming in as long as it's not a whole plethora of them. I like him. I think he did a good job here, and I think Alvin Kamara was, Alvin Kamara is Alvin Kamara, but I think he helped Alvin Kamara, in my opinion. This is the comment of the day, and maybe the comment of the week. Lonnie Wilford, a newcomer to the Dattitude family. A great O-line will make everyone behind them better. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver even. Start there. Couldn't agree more. I mean, that's what I've been screaming, and we've both been screaming. I mean, that's what the Saints – that's why I don't think, if this was a strong quarterback class, even then I'm not sure that this would be the time to go out and draft quarterback. But the fact that there's no question 2026 draft classes head and shoulders – better quarterback wise. I just don't think, the Saints got to go build in the trenches. And a guy like Kellen Moore, that's what Sean Payton thought when he first got here. That's what he wanted to do. I think Kellen Moore is going to think the same way.
Kellen Moore had the best offensive line in football with Philadelphia. He did. He's no dummy. He definitely knows that needs to be addressed. And I do think that look, there could be possibilities as early as 9. And they keep pulling me back in. I had to make the Saints pick for our mock draft that's going to be coming out soon. And I went I went offensive line just because why not? I mean, anybody there,
you're right. Yeah.
anybody there, yeah. And it was the offensive. I'll tease it, whatever. It's the offensive lineman from Missouri. Like he's 8th on our big board. He got to 9. I said, easy pick for me. He wants to play tackle. He wants to play guard. I don't care. Either one is an upgrade from what you have on the right side. So that's where you gotta get better, because guess what? If the offensive line gets better, you know what? Derek Carr plays better.
I agree 100%.
Alvin Kamara runs it better. And like that would help. There's no question about it.
No, I think that's 100% the case. And look, if they draft the tackle, as much as I dogged him all throughout the past 2 years or whatever, I really think Trevor Penning, I think he could make a start for a starting guard. I really think you could move him to guard. And I love the way he blocked for the run much better than I expected. He's still not a good pass blocker, but I think at guard on the inside, he can be covered up. They really go out and get a really good solid tackle. This line can go from like the 28th to 29th best offensive line in football, which is bad, to like 18 or 20 almost right away. And I know that sounds like, okay, big deal. They're mediocre. But if they're just mediocre and you give Carr some time with Kamara, maybe 1 or 2 more really good years in the tank, I mean, this team could be okay.
Look, I do think just if you could do an offensive lineman and he comes in right away and he's not Trevor Penning bad like right away,
right?
There's no doubt that this team can at least kind of be in the ballpark. And for me, look, I'm as you're talking, I'm going to go look back at some of my O-line stats throughout the season. And look, I mean, Trevor Penning, you don't want him as your tackle.
But he had better grades. We would have went in and his grades weren't great. But if you look at him, they're better than I expected, because I didn't expect anything out of him. And the fact that he went through and started all 17 games, again, it's probably out of necessity more than anything else, but he still started all 17 games and they didn't need to replace him. He did an okay job, which again, okay is better than I thought it was going to be miserable.
Yeah, look, he took of right tackles. He took the fourth most pass block snaps of any right tackle this year. He gave up the most pressures. He didn't give up the most. He gave up 5 sacks, which you had people. So, I mean, they had people give up 11, 10, 8, 7. So, he didn't give up as many sacks, but he's probably still on the wrong end of that. But penalties, he
took quite a few penalties.
He had 10, and that was, let me see, it might have been, that's the 3rd most for a right tackle. Juwan Taylor, actually, of the Chiefs in the regular season got the most.
Okay.
And you saw how that offensive line kind of crumbled when things were going. But that's the thing. It's like, okay, you have holes. You want to upgrade at tackle, but do you try Penning at guard? I think it just depends on, say, if you draft somebody, where do you like them better? You could, but like you said, you can cover up Penning and move him to guard, or look, ultimately you'd like to upgrade both spots.
Yeah,
both spots on that right side.
Sean asks, is there any, as we transition to talking about quarterback, is there any quarterback in the current draft class you see better than the Rat? Yeah, there are multiple quarterbacks better than the Rat. However, that being said, I just don't see the need for the Saints to even draft one at all. I mean, I just maybe late and get rid of Haener if you want to, and have a 3rd quarterback. I mean, I think they're going to be status quo quarterback. I think Carr's going to be the starting quarterback. I think Rattler's going to be the backup quarterback. And if it's Haener or somebody else as the emergency quarterback or whatever, so be it, whatever. But I just don't see a need to draft one again, unless a guy like Jackson Dart, if he's still there in the 3rd round when you pick and you want to go out and take a leap, okay, maybe, but you just can't. To me, my opinion is you just can't even afford to draft one before the 3rd round, really, even then.
Well, let's just put it in perspective, and I'll just go with what our grades and all were for last year for some of these quarterbacks. And obviously some of these players played better than those grades. By
the way, Larry's talking about at The Athletic. Larry Holder, former NFL beat writer for The Athletic, now covering collectibles, but still writing NFL stories as well. So when he's talking about his grades, you can find them all at The Athletic. Go ahead.
Yeah, not my grades, but The Athletics, like
Right.
Dane Brugler, his big board. Last year, he had like Bo Nix was in the 50s, Penix was in the 50s, and obviously those guys played better. But last year, he had Spencer Rattler right behind Penix, and I think it was a low second round number, like he might have been in the lower 50s or 60 or something like that. So we viewed him as a second or third round.
Yeah,
guy.
you've been hyping up Rattler. Y'all been hyping up Rattler since before he got drafted.
Yeah, so I'll just go and look at our current big board right now, where the quarterbacks lie on that list. We have Cam Ward at 15. We have Shedeur Sanders at 25. We have Jackson Dart at 57.
That's bottom of second.
Yeah, we have Tyler Show at 59, Jalen Milroe at 61, and Will Howard at 84. So that's in our top 100 prospects right now. Now I'm sure that list will move as you learn more and things like that, and you're talking to other teams, and and as Dane does his homework, and he's one of the best in the business. So I like Hit the Beast and all that stuff is like my Bible.
Right.
Yes, but yeah. So that's just know that that's where the quarterbacks are. Right now.
In my opinion, not that it means anything in the grand scheme of things, but I really think the only one of that entire list that you mentioned that is a potential NFL starting quarterback is Cam Ward. And I mean, I know a lot of people like Tyler Show, and he's moving up draft boards as well. Jeff Duncan was talking about him on the show a couple weeks ago. But I just again, I'd rather see the Saints just do what they got to do this year. And look, there's a lot of comments out there. Some of these comments I'm going to wait till Larry gets off the show because we have a limited time with Larry this morning. So we will show. If I don't get to you, there's some things you said because there's a lot of comments in here that I want to come back to later. But so I going back to all this and talking about quarterback, I just don't think as we get to the Carr Rattler debate, I just think you just stick with those two guys for now, and then you figure. I just don't think Kellen Moore is going to want to. I think he comes in here knowing that with where the salary cap issue is, he's kind of got to stick with Carr.
That's part of it for sure. And I brought it up on the show in the past. It's like when Peyton went to Denver, he had to eat and play with Russell Wilson for a year and then start over. And I feel like this is a similar situation. I at least feel like the Saints are in a better spot to compete with Carr as a quarterback than I felt like the Broncos were with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And it might sound weird to say, but I just never – I didn't trust Russell Wilson. And when Peyton went there, I was like, this isn't going to last long. I just think Carr gives you a better chance within this situation than maybe Peyton had at that point. So you still have a year, and then you figure it out what you want to do in terms of your future quarterback. But look, I really don't have any insight as to what they're thinking, and maybe they're still debating that. But I'm sure Kellen Moore came in with a plan like, hey,
yeah, he already
envision.
Yeah, he knows what he wants to do. We just don't know what he knows.
Right. Or we don't really know what he wants to do because no one really has any intel with what he's really thinking.
I think he knows what he's thinking. I think the whole building knows what he's thinking. Apathy says, sure. and there is a report on NBC that the Saints are bringing Phil Galliano back. He will take over for Darren Rizzi. He was the assistant special teams coach. Phil Galliano will be promoted to become the special teams coach. That is on this internet machine that Al Gore invented 30 years ago or so ago. We thank him for that. Anyway, moving on. Again, sticking with this theme, but moving on, I guess, the debate between Carr and Rattler. And it goes on. And let me show this comment here, even though I don't agree with him. It's a comment that a lot of Who Dats have. Who Dat Daddy says he wants to fortify the O-line. That part I agree with. Cut Carr and give Rattler a fair fighting chance. He has the tools. I completely disagree that we've seen anything from Spencer Rattler that leads anyone to believe he can be a starting NFL quarterback. But more than just that, okay, I just think that the reason why you have to go with Carr going forward is I just can't see this team eating $50 million of cap money. Now, people say, yeah, you can wait and make him a post-June 1 cut and you'll save $30 million, but you're not going to get cap compliant by cutting Carr. You're going to have to eat this $50 million right away. You don't get the money back until June 2nd. It doesn't help you become cap compliant, which is why common sense and logically, I think you have to bring Carr back. You rework his contract. He's here through 2026. You get a quarterback before 2026. Carr is the bridge to whoever the next quarterback is for the Saints in 2027, who is not currently on this roster. That's my opinion.
I mean, I think that makes the most logical sense. Like, and if you look at the Saints quarterback situation and what's available and what's not and what you have on your roster, look, we know Mickey Loomis is still going to be, look, we want to win games.
Right.
Like,
correct.
It gives you the best chance to win games. And
Kellen Moore is a rookie coach. There is, look, I'm not trying to piss anybody off when I say this, but there is 0.0 chance that Kellen Moore wants to come in here and start Spencer Rattler as his quarterback, knowing that he would probably go 3-14 or 4-13. I just don't think there's any chance at it. He wants to win as soon as possible as a rookie head coach, and he knows that's probably his best chance to win.
And if you don't, you shouldn't be the head coach of an NFL team.
Exactly.
That's silliness. And but it also goes to show, like, just because you say you're going to be patient with somebody,
right?
Doesn't always happen. Look up in New England. All right, let's be patient with Mayo. We got him a franchise quarterback, and they were terrible, and then they had to admit, oh, well, he wasn't ready for the job. So you can't just discard this season if you're the first-year head coach. No way. Like, that exactly. Is not a thing. Otherwise,
which is what I'm saying. Like,
shouldn't be a head coach.
And even if you don't like Carr, even if you're not a Carr fan, I mean, that's what I'm trying to get to everybody. I'm not trying to say, people may see something in Rattler, and I could be completely wrong about Rattler. I'm not even saying that. I'm not even basing on what I think about Spencer Rattler. It really doesn't have anything to do with Spencer Rattler. It has to do with common sense and logistically. There's zero question. Anybody who thinks that Spencer Rattler is better than Derek Carr they need to go watch gymnastics or some other sport because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay, Carr is definitely better than Spencer Rattler and definitely gives you a better chance to win. But just, again, common sense tells you that the Saints can't afford to eat salary. They're going to have to take a lot of these vets and a lot of these old guys. They're going to have to restructure contracts. And Charles asked, and a couple other people asked a similar question. What if Carr doesn't want to restructure his contract? There's zero chance that he wouldn't restructure his contract because they'd probably turn a lot of this money into a signing bonus and he'd get the money immediately. So a lot of this money immediately. There's no chance that he wouldn't want to do that.
Right. Because if he's not losing money, like, that's the thing.
He's not going to, exactly.
If they're not asking him to take a pay cut, then you just move it around. And yeah, that happens all the time. But I mean, you are going to have to get through. Like, I think Saints fans are smart enough to know, like, this is a year where you're probably still going to be playing with older players, and you have to ride that out, and then a lot of that money can come off the books, and then you can start a little bit more fresh. But still, you're not going to not try to compete to win. Like, that's not the way Mickey Loomis has ever ran this organization. That's not the way that Kellen Moore is going to come in here. That's not the way the players that they currently have in the locker room. I mean, a lot of those guys have won a lot of games in life. Like, they're not going to just lay down. Now, they might just be diminishing, skills, but you're also having guys like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Like, they're playing for future earnings,
right,
and jobs. Like, they're not going to just lay down. Like, that's not going to happen because they want to keep having a career, and so that means they're going to be playing hard. And so, yeah, that's, so there's no like, oh, we're just tanking. They're not going to play it that way.
About 5 more minutes here with Larry Holder this morning on the Dattitude podcast. It's Wednesday morning, presented by Evangeline Securities. Just 2 more episodes left in season 4. But before I take a break, looking forward to vacation. I'm just saying, I am. Preacher Man says, Carr is a good bridge. The only problem is paying a bridge what he's making. The problem to your problem, Preacher Man, is that whether they keep him or not, they still got to pay him. His money is going to count against the cap either way. Again, even if you were to make him a post-June 1 cut, You have to get cap compliant first, and you can't get cap compliant if you just whack him June 1st. It doesn't help you in the grand scheme of things. Sure, it might help you sign some free agents and June 2nd, but that doesn't do you any good either because all the best free agents are going to be gone by then.
Right. And so it's like, why would you not ride with him one more year? Like,
just
why
exactly.
wouldn't you?
Before I let you go, I got a chart to show, and I'm going to show it again with Gabe later. But we were talking about this on Monday, and I just got so much hate mail over talking about the Saints tanking. There are so many. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to give up for Lent, calling people mean names. So I'm going to be polite when I say this, but there are some less than intelligent people who want to tank next year because they think that tanking will get you somewhere. Well, I put a chart together. Is tanking a recipe for future success? Here are the last 3 years and teams' records after some of them didn't tank, and it's a little skewed also because obviously there are years where teams had multiple first top 10 draft picks. But if you look at this list, Larry, I mean, you look at last year, okay, the 24 draft, and I know that 1 year isn't a great example, but go back to 2022, and you look at the top 10 draft picks and their combined records. In 2022, after they got the top 10, they went 74, 94, and 2. The next year, those teams combined to be just a little bit better, 2 more wins, same amount of losses. And then in the third year, they were worse. They were 70 and 100. 70 and 100 3 seasons after they were picked in the top 10. You look at 2023, which is a little bit skewed because Philly went 14 and 3 this year. But it went from 77 and 93 to 82 and 88, still losing seasons. And then this year, the top 10 went 73 and 97. So my point to this chart is that tanking doesn't do you anything. It's proven here. And I could go back in time and we could show more years, but there are a lot like this one. It doesn't make you better. Losers continue to be losers for the most part. Again, you can find anomalies. You can find Philadelphia from 2 years ago, and they got Jalen Carter, and it made them better, and I think they traded into that spot to get that pick. And you could look at Detroit, who was 3-13 or whatever 3 years ago, and they've consistently got better. They went from 9-8 to 11-6, and made the NFC Championship game, and 15-2 this year. There are teams that don't fit the mold, and there's Houston, but for the most part, teams that pick in the top 10 are consistently losing. It's kind of like poker. The same people I play in a poker tournament every Monday, and for the most part, same people make it to the final table. It's not a coincidence.
It shows you that a lot of these teams are more than one player away.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing, and that's how you get there. And look, the Saints, they've been teetering around the top 10, but now, like, it just goes to show you now they're getting worse and worse. Like, they're more than one player away, and a lot of those teams are the same way. And so that's why when a team is so desperate for a quarterback and they reach because it's like that's their only way. Like, that would bring the biggest help immediately, but you're gambling. I mean, just like someone like the Colts, like that they gambled on Anthony Richardson, and that has not panned out. And
I think both of us said it wouldn't.
Right. He was an athletic freak, but I mean, yeah,
But he was 56% in college or whatever it was.
The whole completion percentage at that point, I knew I was like, he could be a physical marvel, but that is hard to improve right away.
Gabe Henderson is happy about that as a Texans fan, by the way.
Well, speaking of somebody, man, we got to see what's the real deal with CJ Stroud. I mean,
he definitely took a step
a little bit.
He took a step backwards for sure. Gabe says CJ's fine. I think he'll be fine too. All right. Lastly, before we say goodbye for the day, just your thoughts on. Look, everybody in the chat. There's plenty of comments that I want to show as soon as Larry goes off with us, and then Gabe's going to come on in a little bit as well. But just final thoughts. We've talked about it, but if people haven't heard you, what do you think about Kellen Moore? I know he wasn't your first choice, but as far as what we said about getting new blood in here, just your overall thoughts about Kellen Moore and how do you think he fits in with this organization?
Well, he's definitely comes in less. It seems like he's less of an alpha, and I think
Yeah.
even just talking to Eagles players during the week of the Super Bowl, I mean, no one ever touted him as an alpha. They said basically he's a 180 from Nick Sirianni. He is a screamer, this, that, and the other. And it's funny. I asked Lane Johnson about Kellen, and then he said he brought up commanding a room, and then I followed up and said, "How does he command a room?" And he pointed to like both of his lobes without saying words, and he just says his mind. Like when he speaks and shows you what plans he's devising and this, that, and the other, that people and that offense bought in without question.
Interesting.
And they really, him and Jordan Mailata. I mean, they were giving ringing endorsements for him. But I think part of it is that, look, the Saints, they've kind of had their own culture with their front office and that sort of thing. And it's without Sean Payton, you're wondering if maybe they needed an alpha back at head coach. I'm curious to see how much alpha Kellen Moore can be. I think that matters. And so I'm curious to see, where that is. And I think it helps that, say, he brings in a defensive coordinator who's had head coaching experience, because Brandon Staley, if he's the hire, could be someone that, all right, could probably be an alpha in that room. Like, he's been in that position. He's been a head coach, with mixed reviews, but still he's at least been an alpha in that situation. And so, I'm curious to see if the Saints personnel will buy into what Kellen Moore's selling, because guess what? Their personnel is not as good as the Eagles. The Eagles were good before Kellen Moore. They just got a little bit better. But they also added a piece like Saquon Barkley. I mean, that helps.
Well, his job is going to be immediately to do what Dennis Allen successfully did for at least a little bit last offseason, and then things fell apart, and it fell apart for him too. But Dennis Allen was successful, and after the debacle, the way the season ended with the whole BS and apology thing, he was successful in going to his veterans and Cam Jordan and Demario Davis and Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara and saying, look, I need you guys to be on my side and help get this locker room back. And I thought that he did that. And I thought that it went well over the summer and into the start of the regular season, as we saw. It lasted about 4 games, and then things started falling apart, and that was the end for Dennis Allen. But I think that's what Kellen Moore needs to do immediately, and I think he will. And it sounds logical. I mean, I guess I'm not saying anything that's not obvious, but he's got to win over those veterans, and I think everything else will fall in line.
Well, because the veterans will be able to kind of get the rest of the people in line. So, yeah.
And Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah. Look, do I think it's possible? Yes. Am I skeptical? Yes. So I think, everybody knows who my top choice was, and he is an alpha. Aaron Glenn, but look, he didn't want to come here, and that was the battle you were going to have to fight, because he was going to be wanted, and he went to the Jets. And look, he's already an alpha up there. He's like, all right, Aaron Rodgers, we're good. He's the one who would have the guts to say that. It's like, I don't care about you, dude. Get out of here. Mm-hmm. So, and kudos to him, but still, it's this is going to be, I think we got to learn what Kellen Moore is. I think that's what, we at least had an idea of what Dennis Allen was. We knew him already.
We sure did.
And so they were rightfully skeptics about him being a head coach again. I get it. But anybody who covered it, knew his mentality, knew this, and knew, we don't know Kellen Moore a ton. So it's going to be a learning process for everybody involved.
Well, we're going to find out a lot, I think, over the next month. I mean, look, I think we'll know Carr's status by the next time you and I talk on the show, which will be probably towards the end of next month, I guess, or early April, as we start looking at the draft. I don't think there's any question with the new year starting on March 12th. I think we'll know what the answer on Carr is. We may not know it exactly how it's going to happen, but we'll get the gist. And so next time we talk, we'll have an answer on that and be able to talk about it. So Have a happy Mardi Gras, my friend.
I will try my best. You too.
And it won't be long before I'll be seeing you at the Donzi Rainy League draft.
Don't think I'm not already doing research. I was too close. I was too close last year.
The question is, will we make a trade before the next time you come on this show?
I'm gonna go look at your roster now.
All right, we can do it now. I got a lot of keepers this year. All right, Larry, hold on. Seriously, I'll talk to you soon. It's gonna be a little bit this time, but we'll talk to you at the end of March or early April. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Good seeing you.
All right, man. Have a good one. All right, Larry Holder, everybody. A lot of comments to get to. There's a lot of comments in the queue that I want to show again because I want to talk about them, and I want to talk about them with you, not at you. We can have a conversation about this. I'm glad some of the numbskulls that were here Monday, either they aren't talking today or I guess they're being reasonable or they're not, whatever. It's a lot more reasonable crowd here today. A lot of it's the regulars, though. That could be part of the reason. We told you earlier we were letting you know more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family-run or privately held business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? Well, after their complimentary valuation of your company, if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process among established private equity funds from, you guessed it, around the world. And they will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform, and there are very few companies like them in this area. None with their dedication to success. They are the Super Bowl of securities. They're fully licensed and ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important. You know what it is. I'm not going through what it's not today. You know what it is. It's the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. All right, let's go talk about some comments before we bring Gabe in this morning. Let's see here. Where do I start? Chad Gage, if they love the Rat so much, why throw them to the Wolves this year? That's a good question. I mean, if you're a big Rattler fan, why would you want to come in and throw him to the Wolves? Because if he stinks this year, if they were to start him, if Kellen Moore were to go with him, and he came in and he stunk, he'd never get a chance again. How do you build a quarterback up? I think that's a great point. Jay Tucker Rafferty says he knows for a fact there are 4 vets asking to take pay cuts, not restructure. Well, they're still going to have to restructure. Even if they take a pay cut, you got to restructure them. And no one's going to – look, here's the thing, okay? This is how it works. No one's taking a ridiculous – when we talk about pay cuts, those are going to be like subtle pay cuts. No one's taking a big pay cut, okay? It's not going to happen. They know the Saints are in a bind, and if they're look, if somebody says, and I'll use Cam Jordan as an example, I don't know whether he's willing to take a pay cut or not. But if he is, he's not going to say, okay, I'm making $12 million this year. I don't even know what the number is. I don't have Sport Track up. But I'm making $12 million this year. You can just give me 5. It's not going to happen. He may help the team, but again, whatever they work, it's going to be more like 10, and then they change it to turn $5 million in a signing bonus, and then he has a $5 million salary, and then they're going to eat $5 million in next year's cap. It's going to be more like that. UBN wants to know, will I still call you mean names? Of course I will. I know you wouldn't. It wouldn't be the same for you if I didn't. Walt Crawford, the Saints don't get Genty. What other running backs should they target? I want to look, and obviously people talk about Cam Scatterbo, and he'll be available in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Let's talk about that when we get closer to the draft. Okay. When I come back from vacation, we will be talking about some other things. We're going to talk about LSU baseball going forward. We are going to talk a little bit about Pelicans because, look, we've got to start talking about them. We haven't talked about them at all this year for obviously because they stink. But, I mean, now we have to get into Pelicans talk about their future. And I think we may do some of that on Monday. And Monday may be kind of a mixed show between Saints, Pelicans, maybe a little bit of hodgepodge of everything before next Wednesday we close out the season. I know Doug Mouton is the guest next Wednesday. I think I know who Monday's guest is, but I'm not ready to say it just yet. Okay, Here's an interesting one. Okay. Who Dat Daddy? Talking about restructuring Carr's contract. You can't do this, okay? Turn most of the money into a signing bonus, which lowers his cap hit this year, then cut him post June 1. It doesn't do any good because then you're still going to eat 50. If you do that, you're still going to eat 50 million, okay? That doesn't do you any good. The Saints have got to get cap compliant, okay? I understand what you're saying. Try to turn the salary bonus so you're not going to eat someone's contract like that, eat that much of a contract, and just say, okay, we're just going to cut you, but still eat 50 million. No matter how you turn in what into what, doesn't make a difference. You're still going to have to eat it. I know you want to get rid of Carr. I understand people want to get rid of Carr so bad. They just, whatever, get rid of him. I don't care. You got to realize what makes sense. I'm not sitting here defending Carr and is he the answer? The Saints going to go to the Super Bowl this year or next year or whatever. No, probably not. I mean, I'm being realistic too, but you have to be realistic on what makes most sense for this team. It doesn't matter whether you don't like them or you do like them. The Saints put themselves in this position. They don't have a choice, okay? Kellen Moore, I don't think comes here if he knows. He knows. He knows what's going to happen. We just don't know the answer. This has all been discussed. I promise you. You don't have interviews for 6-8 hours without this being talked about, without scenarios. Mickey Loomis saying, okay, so here's the situation we're in. If we have to keep Carr, how do you proceed? Okay, if we cut Carr, this is what the options are. What would you do? Almost guarantee you the answer is keep Carr. Again, not long-term solution, but probably the answer in 2025 and 2026. Maybe you draft a quarterback in 2026. Maybe you don't. I mean, whatever it is, again, I'm not suggesting at all. By no means am I suggesting Carr is a long-term answer. However, the way the money was set up, you have to do it. Preacher man, you have a good question. The way things have turned out, do I think the contract they gave Carr was a good one or a bad one? The contract they gave him was a good one. What they've done with it is not good, okay? When Carr got signed for what he was signed for, it was basically an average of about $40 million. I think it was exactly $40 million over 4 years, okay? I think the contract they originally signed him to was a good one. But they did the same kick the can treatment, and it seems like we're using kick the can again every show again now. Had they not kicked the can, they wouldn't be in this mess they are now. They still would probably keep him, but then he'd be gone. It'd be easier to get rid of him. But now you kind of can't. So if you go by what quarterbacks are making, and I've said this before, Carr is going to be the 17th or 18th highest paid quarterback in the league in 2025. He is a top 12 quarterback. You can say, no way, all you want. You don't know what you're talking about. Go by numbers. And I know not everything goes by numbers. I'm not an analytics guy, but stats don't lie, especially when you're talking about long-term stats. I don't know how many times I have to say this. 10 out of his 12 seasons that he's played in the NFL, he's been a top 12 quarterback by almost every metric you could possibly use. Quarterback rating, yardage, whatever you want to use. Okay? I don't care. And so with him making 18th highest salary money, yes, I think it was a good contract. I just don't think I think they messed it up. I really do. I know you think the Saints reached by giving Carr the contract they gave him. They didn't reach. That's the going rate for a quarterback. It is what it is. It's just like the going rate for a running back is ridiculously low, in my opinion. You don't have to like Carr, but you have to realize, go back in time. Hindsight's 2020. Even if you don't like him, who was available at the time? It is what it is. Mario Martinez, Saints should have drafted a quarterback before Drew Brees retired. Mickey is to blame. Now try to get the kid from Ole Miss. I agree with part of it. Getting the kid from Ole Miss, to me, Jackson Dart, is a panic move. That's a panic move. That means you can't wait to get a new quarterback. You don't. Here's the thing, okay? If someone said, if you go to a steakhouse, okay, let's say you go to a steakhouse and you say, I want the 8-ounce filet. And they say, I'm sorry, sir. All we have right now is the 12-ounce sirloin. But if you wait an hour, we'll have the filet. What are you going to do? I mean, if you have no patience, like a lot of you don't have any patience, oh, okay, just give me the sirloin. I'll eat it. I know it sucks. It's tough as nails. I'm telling you, the filet is worth waiting for. I don't want to wait. Just give me the sirloin. That's what this is like. So drafting a quarterback this year, in my opinion, assuming that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, again, I think Cam Ward's a potential NFL quarterback. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is. Somebody else? Maybe. I don't know. I think the Saints need to go status quo. Carr's your 1, Rattler's your 2, you move on. As far as they should have drafted a quarterback before Drew Brees retired and Mickey's to blame. Mickey's not to blame for that. You know who's to blame for that? Drew Brees is to blame for that. Sean Payton's to blame for that. Drew Brees didn't want another quarterback in here. Not one that mattered. Remember Garrett Grayson? That was like the best they could do. Drew Brees didn't want another quarterback in here, so they didn't bring one in. They would have brought Mahomes in if they could have, but that was the only one they were going to bring in. They weren't bringing anybody else. They didn't care about life after Brees because Brees didn't want them to think about life after Brees. Just saying, that's the truth. You can like it or not like it. J. Tucker Rafferty, Jalen Carter was the pending trade picks. Okay, didn't realize that. Absolutely. Brian says, I'm fine if the first 2 picks are on the O-line, D-line, then a wide receiver or other skill guy in the third, then the rest of the picks on D. I'm cool with that. Apathy says, I think we're going to know Carr's future fairly quickly after all these coaches are hired. They have to. Glenn said multiple times, quote, I just got here when asked about Aaron Rodgers. Took about 2 weeks to tell him bye. I don't even think it took that long, did it? Difference is between Aaron Rodgers, the Jets are in a fantastic spot salary cap wise. The Saints are not. I would say this. Even though I have told you I think Carr is the bridge to the next quarterback, if the Saints were in a decent cap spot, I don't know that I would care as much. Because then, okay, you want to move on from Carr, you eat salary, and you're in a position to do so, and you want to move on, and you go get someone else. I mean, I don't like Sam Darnold, but somebody like that, or Kirk Cousins, I don't want him either. I'm just saying, what's available this year anyway? Aaron Rodgers, he's not better than Carr. I know he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever played, no doubt. But he's 42 years old, going to be 42. I don't want Aaron Rodgers and that circus show that would come here. Not going to happen. That's why I just think you're stuck. It's a completely different situation than Aaron Glenn was in. However, that being said, there's no question you will know something soon. You will know something soon. Charles Mangus, they should have signed him for $20 million a year. There was 0.0 chance they would have gotten Derek Carr for $20 million a year. No chance. He went for what the going rate was. $40 million. Go look at the salaries, people. It's the same people say, oh, just go trade so-and-so for a first-round draft pick. Like you can just get first round. You don't understand how this works, okay? Someone will set a market. Whoever that first quarterback signed is sets a market. Whatever that last salary is, the next person's going to get a little bit more. Okay? It doesn't work. You don't just sign them for 20. Oh, they should have signed him for $20 million. They wouldn't have signed him. You wouldn't have had a quarterback. It's easy to say, and I think it's hilarious now. People are saying you should have just hung on to Jameis Winston. People hated Jameis Winston. I was definitely not one of them. I thought Jameis Winston, I would have been fine with them keeping Jameis Winston. But people hated Jameis Winston. And now people are coming in here in my chat and leaving comments after that they should have kept Jameis Winston. Are you kidding me? Now you're saying that? Brian S. Steve, you're 100% right. Could have been worse. Could have won the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Could you imagine they paid $50 million a year for, what was it, 6, 7, whatever, however many years it is, the Browns are in a deep hole. Can you imagine if they would have signed Deshaun Watson and won those sweepstakes? Man. Apathy says someone's going to be the Bo Nix of this draft. I hope not. I think Bo Nix is going to say this again, and I could be completely wrong. Like I was completely wrong about CJ Stroud, and I just don't think Bo Nix still don't think he's that good. I just don't. You think that's going to be Dart this year? Now, Bo Nix could be a guy who's a mediocre quarterback and leads you to a bunch of mediocre seasons, which is better than I thought he would be. This is not the year to draft a quarterback. It's definitely not in the first 2 rounds. Gary Thomas Bradford says there are a lot of holes to fill, but I was thinking taking Genty at 9 if he's available, load up on weapons for offense and D-line at DB. I will say this, Gary, and I've said this before too. If the Saints are going to draft anyone but an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman in the first 2 rounds, Ashton Genty is the only one that I'm okay with. Just like last year when I said, Brock Bowers was the only guy that I was okay with the Saints drafting in that first round. And then the Raiders took him right before the Saints were going to pick, even though they didn't need a tight end. And then they went and got Fawanga, which ended up working out right. And just like Gabe says, who's going to come on in a second. Kirk Cousins being paid $45 million a year. No chance Derek Carr would have gotten $20 million. Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins are the same quarterback. In fact, Carr might be better. At worst, they're what and what. And lastly, before we get to Gabe here, and y'all can keep sending messages, sending comments. We'll take them. We're going to be on the air for about another 20 minutes here this morning. Maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Kevin Huddleston, welcome to the Dattitude family. Go find us on YouTube. Subscribe. Honey Badger, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis are tough cuts but necessary. Here's the problem, Kevin. My problem with that is doesn't save you any money. You'd rather, at this point, keep them and rework their deals and maybe get them to take pay cuts. Maybe. But those are tough decisions. You don't get anything salary cap wise by cutting them. Now you do after this year. So maybe you do cut them and you just live without them. Of those 3 guys, I do look, there are going to be some tough surprise cuts, and there are going to be guys that Kellen Moore says, look, I don't care. And Mickey Loomis says, okay, we'll eat this. There are going to be salaries that the Saints eat. I don't think it's going to be Carr. I'd be shocked if it's Carr. But one of those 3 guys you just mentioned, those potential cuts, they are, and you just eat the salary. Be tough. Anyway, let's come on. Let's bring Gabe on. Wednesdays with Gabe Henderson. Here this morning, the Dattitude podcast presented by Evangeline Securities. The comments are a lot nicer today, Gabe.
They are. I've noticed that.
What's going on. I was expecting
the one thing I'll say in
turn red.
One thing I'll say in response to some of the comments: the Saints should be nowhere near Ashton Genty. You can't. You have too many holes to draft Ashton Genty at 9, and this running back class is too deep.
I hear you. I just don't.
You can.
I don't know.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that. I'm not advocating that they would. That's the one guy, the one non in the trenches guy that if they draft him, I'm not going to go ballistic. I'll be like, okay,
yeah.
So that's my point.
Well, I'll tell you, I would.
I'm not necessarily advocating for him.
If it were me, I would go O-line because there's going to be so many quarterbacks go that you're going to get a premier offensive lineman. So I would take an offensive lineman, and then I would go with someone like a Marion Hampton out of North Carolina or Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. If you're desperate for a running back in the second round, I think they're both receiving second round grades right now, but they're both incredible running backs. So
where does Scatabo go? 4th, 5th round?
Let me look. He's not even. I mean, he's barely a top 10 running back in this class.
Yeah,
which tells you that says more about the depth of the running back class.
Yeah, no, and it's definitely a deeper
He's
class.
Projected 4th rounder.
Okay, well, it's definitely a year, and I would rather see the Saints do it in the third round or so.
Yeah.
However, if they do it in the first round, I'm okay with that. I know you wanted to talk about this chart a little bit that I showed, so I'm gonna call it back up. And for those of you who didn't see this chart earlier when he showed it, when we talk about tanking and potential, do you win now? Do you keep Carr and take a shot at winning? Again, there's no guarantee. You keep Carr. I mean, they could have another season like this year, and he gets hurt, and Spencer Rattler plays, and it is what it is. Or do you just say, to hell with it, you cut it, you eat the $50 million, and you start Spencer Rattler? Because those are most likely your only options. If you make him a post-June 1 cut, you theoretically could go get someone, and then you're probably stuck with Aaron Rodgers or something like that on a 1-year deal, which you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. So anyway, looking at this chart, to me, not necessarily proves my point, but it makes a point, I guess. And it shows at least the last 3 years. And it's a short sample size. I get it. But you look at the records for people, and especially the 2022 draft. This is skewed because obviously Detroit's an anomaly. They went 9-8 in 2022. They went 12-5 in 2023. They went 15-2 in 2024. So they were an anomaly. But if you look at the rest of these teams, they were losers. They're losers now. Most of them, not all of them, but they just that didn't necessarily get any better by being shitty.
I don't think Detroit's an anomaly on this list. I think this list as a whole is, for lack of a better term, bullshit. And I just don't think you can analyze it like that because, I mean, the
numbers are what they are.
Yeah, they are what they are if you look at them with blinders on. But if you look at them, each team is different. Each case is different. I mean, you look here. How many times is Jacksonville on here? Twice?
Once.
Okay. The Jets, the Giants, Arizona, Las Vegas. I mean, some
Chicago,
of those teams.
Tennessee. That's kind of my point. You're making my point for me. The same teams suck.
I'm not, though. But they're not trying to win. Some of those teams aren't trying to win right now. They're trying to stay.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
They're trying to rebuild.
Jacksonville's been trying to win for 3 years. For 4 years.
They have, and they're on here once, as you said.
They went 9-8, 9-8, and 4-13. That ain't winning.
Yeah, because
that's the Mediocreville and then Suckville. Well, I agree with that. But you're telling me the Giants weren't trying to win?
No, they had Daniel Jones.
Well, you and I know Daniel Jones sucks, but the Giants apparently didn't know that he sucks because they gave him a huge contract. Then they let Saquon Barkley go. They're just idiots. That doesn't mean that they weren't trying to win.
Yeah, but that also doesn't mean that tanking doesn't get you anywhere.
Show me. And look, you can go pick Detroit and even Philadelphia. That's the Saints pick at number 9, by the way. So other than Detroit, and you can make a case for your team, show me somewhere else where it's worked.
Seattle.
Seattle's mediocre at best. What has Seattle done? 9-8, 9-8, and 10-7.
Winning records.
The Saints can do. Well, the Saints have had 2
I mean,
winning records.
What do you want? Do you want a team to go from a top 10 pick to a Super Bowl winner in 3 years?
Well, I want them to be better than what they are. See, I mean, the Saints have had winning records 2 of the last 4 years.
Okay. And
they're
mediocre.
trying to win.
The reason that I initially wanted to talk about that list is because you're looking at it in a vacuum. You're not looking at teams who need quarterbacks. Some of those teams didn't need Arizona is the perfect example on that list. They are bad.
Okay.
They're here twice, and I would venture to say they're probably going to be here again next year. Well, I mean,
Jets have needed a quarterback. Carolina needed a quarterback, got one. They still suck. Atlanta needed a quarterback. They got one. They still stink.
They did, but look at Washington.
Vegas needed a quarterback and didn't get one, and they suck. I mean, so I don't understand what you're getting at.
I don't understand the point of this whole list and how it proves that tanking doesn't work when it does work for some of the teams on the list. And
it works for 2. It actually worked for 1, really. Detroit's really the only team. Houston, Washington. you can make an okay. Washington is an anomaly. Okay, that's
no. You can't just say they're an anomaly when they don't prove the point.
This proves my point. Forget about the total. You could pick one team. I'm not even cherry picking. Total records. Go back to 2022. You got 20 games under 500 in 2022 combined. 18 games under 500 combined in the next year. 30 games under 500 in 2024. That's not The only thing that matters is your record and where you finish. It's literally the only thing.
Not necessarily. If you look at that list, there are what I think. Let's say, for lack of a better, let's say 4 teams on there. There's Detroit. There's Philly. There's
Philly
Houston,
doesn't count because they didn't
Washington.
tank to get there. That was the Saints' pick, so that doesn't.
They still
count.
had a top 10 pick.
They had a top 10. They had nothing to do with tanking. They were already good.
Oh, so now context matters.
It's not context. The Philadelphia had the
All
Saints
of it is
pick.
context.
That was the Saints pick.
You could go through. Okay, and Houston had the Browns pick.
Yeah, but they also had their own too. They sucked. They sucked to get to where they were.
You can look at each
Houston's
one of
a
these
good
30
team.
cases.
Houston's a good team. They had their own pick.
But even then,
Washington, Houston, and Detroit. Name another team besides Philadelphia.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's what I'm getting at.
1 out of 10 chance?
You have a 1 in 10 chance. You could be that team.
You got a
It's all
better
a
than 1 in
crapshoot.
10 chance if you win next
Every
week.
single thing on here is a crapshoot. I mean, we talked about it the other day. Drafting a player, there's so many factors involved. But if you look at those teams, go back and let's look at those teams real quick. I hate to keep jumping back and forth.
No, it's okay.
But if you look at it, Houston has their franchise quarterback.
Agree.
Chicago now has their franchise quarterback.
He's
Washington
terrible.
has their franchise.
They'll never win
Caleb
anything
Williams is
with
not
him.
terrible. Come on.
Okay. At best, he's average. At best.
He had the worst offensive line in football, and he was average last year.
Okay, we can talk about him again in a year or two, and Chicago will still be crappy because Ben Johnson's not going to change that team. They'll still be crappy. They might be 8-9 if they're lucky. Who knows? Maybe they'll even go 9.
Okay, but I would say I would venture to say that they believe they have their franchise quarterback.
Okay. Tennessee thought they had a
Tennessee never thought they had a franchise quarterback.
They've thought twice now they had their quarterback.
Who?
Malik Willis and now your boy Nevis that you love. No, I know you
weren't they both second rounders?
No, wasn't Levis in the first round?
No, he was. I believe he was early second.
Okay, well they still thought he was going to. They still thought he was going to be their franchise quarterback. Malik Willis was supposed to be a top
really.
pick.
I mean, and anyway,
what about Indianapolis?
Indianapolis. I mean, Larry said they swung and they missed. But if you look at the teams on this list that took quarterbacks: Chicago, Washington, New England, Houston.
Carolina stinks.
Carolina, I believe, is actually in a decent place now. Bryce Young. Come on. Let's not act like Bryce Young didn't look good to the second half of last year.
You're going to cherry pick 6-8 games out of what he's done his first 2 years. Look, I was the biggest Bryce Young defender.
Well, he's now got
in the city.
He's now got an actual coach as opposed to Frank Reich.
I'm just going to go back to this one more time, and I don't care what anybody. You can try to make whatever point you make. The bottom line is these records suck. Top 10, and so a 1 in 10 chance. You got a 1 in 10 chance of being good without tanking. You got a better than 1 in 10 chance without tanking.
The Saints are better off tanking, but let me finish my point.
Tanking
a lot of those teams.
Sean, you're right.
It did. A lot of those teams have their futures now. They're now in a better position to win in the future because they tanked and they got quarterbacks. The Saints need to do that. They need a quarterback. The future.
That's your opinion. It's an opinion.
It's not. It's a fact.
That's an opinion that they're in a better position. You know what's a fact? 74, 94, and 2, 76, 94.
It's a fact that they need a quarterback.
That's a fact.
It's a fact that a lot of those teams still need quarterbacks because they use those picks on something other than quarterback.
I hear where you're coming from, and look, we can agree to disagree all you want. Tanking, I don't know how many times to say it. There's no other way to say it. I'm gonna say it till the cows come home. They may lose again next year. They may stink, and we'll be sitting here next year doing the same kinds of shows. Losing does nothing but make you a loser. It doesn't do anything for you. And we can go back in time and look at 21 and the 20 draft and the 19 draft, and this team got a quarterback and that team got a quarterback, and they still stunk. And oh wait, but this team was good. I found this one. This one's really good. I mean, Kyler Murray is supposed to be the answer for the Cardinals. What have they done since he's got there? Nothing. I mean, they got their coach down. Nothing. They got a wide receiver. Oh, they're better. They're set up for the future. Why? They keep
the Saints
losing.
Sucked last year, and they didn't get a good pick. So would you rather them be mediocre to bad every year and not get a good pick, or would you rather endure a few
I will
years of
take
tanking?
mediocre over bad
That
any
is
year.
horrible.
Any
So you
year.
would take next year for the next decade over 2 to 3 years of shittiness, and
You're assuming they're
possible
going to
franchise.
get somebody good if they suck.
You're
You're assuming. You're making an ass out of you and
are.
me. You are assuming. You don't know what the hell they're going to get.
I know they're not going to get any better right now.
Oh, how do you know? Winning sets a foundation. Okay, look at teams.
They
that
are in
win.
football purgatory, Jim. They need to blow it up. The Saints suck as they are right now. They
You
are.
said the
They
same
have
thing
no
about
future.
Okay, there's a lot of teams we could say that for.
Yes.
Jacksonville blew it up for Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people. I'm not saying you or I don't even remember your opinion about Trevor. In fact, we weren't working together then.
I've never been a big Trevor Lawrence
Okay,
fan.
and neither have I. So I didn't necessarily think he was the answer either. But the Jacksonville Jaguars certainly thought he was the answer. They blew it up for Trevor
Yes.
Lawrence. What did
Yes,
they
they
get?
did.
The same thing as the Saints. Mediocre until they absolutely suck this year, just like the Saints. So they
It's
blew
a
it up, and that
crapshoot.
worked great.
It's all.
I
Here's
agree.
where.
I agree with you. That's my point. We agree
What
on
the
it.
hell
It's a
do you mean
crapshoot.
Madden logic, Mal? I'm not using Madden logic.
No, what the point is here that we agree that it's a crapshoot. I agree with you.
It is all a
100%.
crap. But here's the thing. Here's
So
where I'm
I would
coming
rather
from.
win and have a crapshoot that if the Saints win, they're still going to be drafting whatever.
Let me speak.
Drafting doesn't
Oh.
do anything for you half the time.
Let me speak on the experience
More
that
than
I've
half
had
the
as a
time.
fan. I endured years of Bill O'Brien as my head coach. The Houston Texans went 9-7, damn near every year under him, and won the division.
Okay.
They were in football purgatory. They had no shot of winning a Super Bowl, and they had
still
no
don't.
shot of getting a top 10 pick. They were in football purgatory. They didn't get any better in those picks.
They're better. They're
obviously-
better now, but they still don't have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Let's be realistic.
In a year or two, they might.
They're better. They're a better
They
team,
might.
and there's no question they were a better team. And
They have more of a chance to win the Super Bowl with this current core than they ever did under Bill O'Brien. And yes, they got lucky at quarterback.
I don't disagree
but
with
my
that.
point is you're better off. Me personally, this all comes down to personal
You're talking
preference.
about for 2 picks, basically, because you and I both agree that after the second round, it doesn't really matter where you pick.
Yeah,
So-
it's
And it
every-
really, it kind of
here's
doesn't
the
even
thing.
matter after the first in the grand
It doesn't.
scheme
It
of
doesn't matter at all.
things. Okay, so
Because you have to have the staff in place to make good draft picks. The LA Rams are such a good team, and the reason they didn't need to rebuild is because they draft quality players late.
Right.
You
So what
need
does that do for you
everything to
tanking?
go right? But here's the thing. There
I
is
agree
no
100%
point-
with what you just said.
There is no point. You have to at least try to make yourself better. You can't sit here every year and win between 4 and 8 games and go
what
into
does
the
that
next
have to
year
do
and
with
try and tell
tanking?
yourself that you're a winner.
Agreed. What does that have to do with tanking?
So tanking, you're giving yourself a chance
How?
because you're getting better draft picks. You're freeing up more cap space.
You just agreed with me that
No,
the only
you're
one
freeing
matters
up
is
more
the
cap
first one.
space
How are you freeing up more cap space?
because you're making your team worse. You are getting rid of the
But
costly
I'm talking
guys
about this
on your
current
team.
Saints team. This current Saints team doesn't do jack squat to cut people because they still have to eat these salaries. And
They do.
And so
And because they have all these salaries on their roster, they have no chance of signing free agents and making themselves better.
correct. I agree. So I don't understand your point. Tanking.
So they need to tank.
If you cut 6 guys, you're not saving any money. If you
No,
go
I'm
and
not
cut the
saying
six-
that it's
Hi-
what. Okay, let's be brutally honest here, and
Okay.
I disagree with you, Charles. The Rams have
Okay,
a
well, we'll
lot
get back
of.
to them in a minute. Go ahead. I'm trying to understand what you're saying because obviously
This
I
is
don't.
a multi-year thing for the Saints. There's no quick fix. The Saints
I
are
don't
not
necessarily
going to,
disagree with that.
The Saints are not going to rebuild this roster in one off season or maybe even 2 off seasons. We could sit here and we've said if they hit on this pick, if they hit on that pick, if they hit on this pick, maybe they can win the division. But they won't compete for
That
a Super
doesn't do
Bowl.
anything by cutting players, though. We're talking
No,
about
I'm-
a salary cap
You
situation.
cut players, you don't cut players this offseason. You cut them next offseason.
Okay, so
You
still,
ship out these
that
guys.
doesn't lead to tanking, though. You still can
It
try to
does.
win, no matter what. You still try to win. You just like Herm Edwards said,
Yeah.
"You play to win the game." I still don't.
You do,
I
but
still don't get it.
If it gets you nowhere, it's pointless. I
How
would
long
rather
should
my
they tank
team.
for?
I do what?
How long should they tank for?
Until they are in a place where they can build a good roster.
So just
because
be
right
like the
now they're
Jets
not
and
in
just
that place.
Be like the Jets and Giants and just suck every year.
No, because you have to actually have guys in place who are
here's
good
the
at their
difference.
jobs.
Here's
That's the difference with the Saints, and this is where I'll give them credit. Say what you will about Mickey Loomis, say what you will about some of these other guys. The Saints have smart people in the building. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, but here's the difference, Gabe, and I'm going to tell you what the difference is mainly in the way of thinking for someone your age. And I'm not trying to use age as the I'm not saying Madden or anything, but this is what I'm saying when it comes to difference in age. You grew up with a team that was, I mean, for the most part, the Texans
mediocre to bad.
Yeah, but they were some years they were a little better than mediocre.
We didn't go to the playoffs until or win anything of note, being the division for the first 10 years.
Okay, well, here's the difference. Okay, first 10 years. When I grew up, okay, I watched a team for 20 effing years that absolutely sucked. You prayed to God they went 8-8. Okay, you just hope maybe they'll go to the playoffs. They're 9-7. Mike Lansford kicks a field goal in 1983, and it knocks the Saints out of a chance to. First time I was born in 1968. First time they went to the playoffs, January 3rd, 1988. I was 19 and a half years old, and then they couldn't win a playoff game. The first time they won a playoff game was in 2000. I was 31 years old. So the difference is I know what suck is. I don't want one more year of suck in my life. I don't know how many years of life I got left. So I would rather see my team be 9-8 and compete for a division. Does that, and I don't think 9-8 and competing for a division makes any difference going in the future. That won't change whether the Saints are good or bad in 2026 or good and bad in 2027. I think the opposite of what you think. I think that going 9-8 sets a foundation. It makes players think they can win. They're still doing their best right now. I agree with you. They need to cut some dead weight, but they can't do it. It's going to take time to cut some of these guys, to get rid of some of these guys. In the meantime, try to win so we don't have to be miserable and talk about this crap over and over again. I am sick and GD tired of suck. And that's where I am right now. I understand your point. I just don't think in the long run it's going to change anything.
Let me ask you one question. All of those years that you endured of suck, was it worth it for a Super Bowl? Would you trade a Super Bowl for 30 years of 9-8?
Don't get me wrong.
No, that's my question. Just yes or no.
The answer is no.
Up.
I wouldn't. No, I'd rather compete every year. I'd rather compete every year and give up the Super Bowl.
I'd rather different because 9-8 is not competing. You win a division.
It is competing.
No, it's not.
9-8 gets me. If I get to the playoffs, I know my team. I don't care. Just like you, okay? I know that maybe you didn't believe that the Texans were going to win the Super Bowl this year, but there was a part of you. But there was a part of you, and you're going to lie. If you say anything different, I know you're lying. But there was a part of you that said, you know what? I don't think, no part did you think there was 0.0 chance they're going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, because I didn't think that. Okay?
Not 0.0, but it was very, very.
But you have a chance.
They had a chance. The worst shot in the AFC. I would have.
You got it there, and you had a chance. Okay, and that's the point. I want my team. If I'm rooting for the Saints, or I'm rooting for the Giants, or I'm rooting for the Jets, or someone else that sucks, the Panthers, or who else. I want my team to have a chance. Okay, every year, and because if they suck for 2 years and they tank and they get these picks. There's no guarantee. Let's
just say this for the last time. There's no guarantee no matter what. Nothing is guaranteed in this game. There are way too many moving parts.
And look, people say maybe if they suck, they'll get rid of Mickey Loomis. That's not worth sucking for. Okay. I mean, that doesn't make any sense anyway. I mean,
I will say this. The reason that I am advocating for the Saints to tank is because we have seen this franchise kick the can down the road for years and try and tell themselves that they have a chance at competing.
They kicked the can with Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, to me, helped set this franchise back in time. And
I don't disagree, but he was also the right hire at the time.
I don't disagree with that either. What I'm saying is, and I'm not going to go through the whole Dennis Allen debate. I know you agree with me anyway.
I do.
They should have fired him at the end of last season. I think this season, okay, which was a crappy 5-12 season, okay, not one that's going to help this team. It's going to hurt this team. And people were saying before that they should have tanked, okay? So in a way, you kind of got to tank by default, okay? But keeping Dennis Allen set this franchise back probably at least 2 to 3 years. Okay. And if you make this change last year, you're in a much better situation.
Here's where I'm at. You need that same ruthlessness that you wanted to apply to Dennis Allen and say that they should have fired him then. If you know in your heart of hearts that he wasn't the guy, it is. I mean, no, but for lack of a better
you and I were both on that same page.
We were. But you have to be decisive. How's that? Decisive instead of ruthless. You have to be decisive.
Okay.
I will say this right now. There is a 0.0% chance that the Saints will compete for a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. They don't have a real shot at winning the Super Bowl over the next 2 years.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, he can't say 0. I would
say 0.0.
Okay, well, you could say 0.0. I'm not going to say 0.0. It's not good. It's not excellent. But to me, again, if you get into the playoffs, almost anything can happen. You know, the Bucs to me were a whisker away, not this past year, but last year when they played Detroit, they were a whisker away from making the NFC Championship game. And then I don't care what anybody says.
They were, but that roster,
that
roster was a lot better than this one.
I mean, yes and no.
We've both agreed.
I'm still not convinced about Baker, by the way, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, that's a different debate for a different show. I don't want to get in a whole off topic. My point is, you get there and anything happened, and PBM is 100% right when he says the Giants were 9-7 when they went on to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but here's the difference. They had a quarterback.
Okay. They had a quarterback. Okay.
That's the in this league, it is very difficult to get a quarterback when you are mediocre every year.
I'm just going to tell you that I still have never seen and would like to see. It may turn out the exact same way. It may not. I would love to see what Derek Carr can do with a real offensive line.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't think Derek Carr is going to be around much longer. That's the issue.
I don't either.
He's not going to be afforded the chance to work with a roster that is ready to compete.
I don't disagree with you in that sense, Gabe, but I'm also saying that, and maybe I'm being too much of an optimist, which is really a different role for me. I get it. And the people that have listened to the show for 4 years are like, what the hell is wrong with you? Nothing is the answer. But I just think that winning sets a foundation. If Carr can have one successful season with a decent offensive line, stay upright, and this team has enough, I think they have enough offensive weapons to compete now. The defense, is it good? No, it's not that good. Let's be honest. They've taken 2 steps backward. They were the 5th best defense in the league just 2 years ago. And then I think 9th in 2023 before they fell off of a cliff because they let age get into things. Are they going to get better? I don't know. It depends on who stays. It depends on who goes. The point is, I think this offense could be good enough to compete and set the foundation. Get yourself to where people want to play here, because to me, that's another thing that losing does. Who wants to go play in Jacksonville? Nobody. Who wants to go play for the Giants?
No, but who wanted to go play in Jacksonville when Trevor Lawrence first got there? A lot of people.
Yeah, but that didn't last long. I think bringing in fresh blood, and Doug Peterson wore out his welcome to me. But then again, that's a whole new story. We could sit here and have a whole conversation on where teams win or whatever. But I think Kellen Moore brings in a breath of fresh air. That's the first thing you do. You bring in a new coach. You bring in new blood. Eventually, you do get a new quarterback. But again, I'll say the word if. I'm not afraid to say if. I understand what if means. I get it. Yeah, if Derek Carr can play well behind a solid offensive line, this team can be decent enough to make people want to come here. And to me, that's the toughest thing to do. You got to make people want to come to New Orleans, which is what Peyton did, and he did it in a short period of time, and they turned things around.
I agree, but the thing is, the Saints, people can want to come here all they want. The Saints have no money to bring them in right now.
The Saints on the salary cap situation past 2026 is actually in a pretty good spot. They're actually, even though they're
2026,
even though they're going to have to restructure some things, and some of those things are even going to go into 2027. The point is, it gets better after this year, and it gets even better after next year. You and I both agree. This rebuild is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 1 year. It's probably not going to happen in 2. But that doesn't mean you still can't compete on the way to getting better. If you do it right,
let me ask
you can do
this.
both.
Where are you going to get your next quarterback?
You're going to get him in the draft. And you and I both have talked about it. You agree. I know you agree with this because we talked about it. The 2026 draft is deep with quarterback. You don't have to. And the Saints, look, they're probably going to be like by default. Let's be realistic. Even if they're like average, they're still going to be 14th to 16th. They can get a pretty good quarterback next year, I think, at that number.
I don't think you can.
Maybe you make a trade. Maybe you trade up.
That's
maybe
a
you trade down.
possibility.
Maybe you trade down this year and collect picks to be able to trade up next year. Who knows? I don't know.
That's the thing. You look at last year's draft as a stacked quarterback class. There were 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks.
Yeah, but you know as well as I. Yeah, I think you're right. But that's like super. There's not going to be as many teams.
I could see that happening again next year.
I don't see as many teams needing a quarterback next year.
I do. There's always going to be a need for a quarterback, especially if you have a team like Jacksonville who doesn't.
They're not going to move.
Who realizes that they don't have their guy.
Yeah, they can't though. They can't.
I don't think they will, but
they won't. They can't.
Cleveland.
Move. Anyway, put this on your list. This is actually a show to talk. We could spend a whole show talking about who do we think will need a quarterback in 2026.
Let's do that.
And who are the quarter? I think that's actually a good show. That's another show you could put on the list. We can spend a whole show. Just you and I can talk about that for an hour and a half or whatever. All right, look, we got to get rolling because we haven't been talking about it long. And for those new to the show, Gabe and I often agree to disagree. Okay. I like it because I love this kind of debate. I think it's healthy. Yeah. It's healthy to talk about for Saints fans, to bring, different opinions. We have all kinds of different opinions in the chat. Sometimes people get their feelings hurt when I say I don't agree with them. I know you're not going to get your feelings hurt if I say I don't agree with you. I'm not going to get my feelings hurt if you don't agree with me. The point is, there are lots of ways this team can go. And the fact is, we don't know which way they're going to go. By the way, UBN, I will have you involved in that draft show. That can be fun. Yeah. And I'm going to get to a couple more comments before, but look, and I'll give you one closing thought. Okay. But the point is, going forward, there are so many different options this team has. Whatever they choose, we don't know if it's going to be the right or wrong way for a couple years, right? I mean, it may be right. I just know for me personally, and somebody asked me in the last show, is that what you want? Capital U, like I'm being selfish, or do you think that's what's the best thing for the team? And the answer is both. That's what I want, and that's what that's what I think is best for this team. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, and there's a good chance that other people disagree. I just think that you get nothing by losing, and I think this team can be a winner earlier than others think they can be. Final thought for you, Gabe.
There's more than one way to skin a cat.
No doubt.
It depends on what you're willing to stomach. Do I think it's possible the Saints could be competitors in a few years with all the right moves if they don't blow it up? Yeah, like we've said, anything is possible in this league. Do I think it's more likely that they have to blow it up, tank, and start building up from the ground? Yeah, I do. I'm willing to stomach that as a sports fan. Some people very clearly
you're not
aren't.
A Saints fan, and your team.
I'm a fan of a team that had to go through a similar thing recently.
Yeah, but they didn't have to go through it as long. I mean, you had to look. Don't get me wrong.
The Texans got lucky. You went through accelerated rebuild.
You went through two miserable years with two crappy coaches.
They truly blew it all up. I mean, they stripped the team of every talented player.
I'll say this too, Gabe, and this goes along with your point here. I don't think the Saints are that. What we think is it is meaningless. I mean, we could talk about what we think should be happening, but I know this team. I just don't think this team is capable of stripping into the studs and starting
I don't
over.
disagree. And here's the thing: people always say that the Texans are an anomaly. Yes and no. You do not see. You see a lot of bad teams. I mean, we looked at that list. There were a lot of recurring names: the Jets, the Giants,
Well,
the Cardinals.
even Detroit, they did
Raiders.
it. How many times did they strip down before? And
here's what I'm gonna say though: you don't see a team do what the Texans did very often. There are very few teams that truly strip it down and accept the fact that they're going to be bad for a few years.
Right. Because if there's enough talent on a team, people are always going to think they're going to win it anyway.
Exactly.
So.
And we've talked about it countless times between us. We've talked about it with Mike Detillier. A lot of those teams are in football purgatory. You have maybe, I don't remember the number. I think he might have said 8. You have 8 teams.
He said there are 8 realistic teams that could go to
win a Super Bowl.
That could go win to the Super Bowl, and the other 24. And
it's a revolving door, and you've just got to get your foot in it.
Well, the problem is it's a revolving door for like 3 or 4 teams, right? Because the same 4 of those teams are always up there, or at least
it's just like when, in a roundabout weird way, it's like when people say that coaches shouldn't take this job or that job. There are 32 jobs.
You take the job,
no matter what.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is a great discussion. We'll do it again Monday. We'll see what we don't know what the hell's going to come up on Monday.
Nope.
I don't even know who my guest is yet. I'm pretty sure I know who my guest is, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll see. We may talk about LSU women's basketball. Who knows?
LSU baseball.
Shoot baseball. Talk about whatever. Have a great weekend. I will talk to you on Monday.
Sounds good.
Spirited discussion. That's what the show. That's why it's called Dattitude. I mean, we could be like other shows, and I'm not going to mention any names, where it's like, oh, well, the Saints are over the salary cap by $50 million, and they might have to cut this guy. I mean, that's not who we are. That's not who we are. All right, I'm going to close out the show with some comments that go back, and I don't even know how far I want to go back. Mark Gapsky says he agrees. No tanking. Don't fly down for the home. Oh, you fly down from Vegas to watch all the home games? You are a trooper, man. Jay Tucker Rafferty says Cleveland always sucks. That's true. Although they've had decent seasons, but overall, you look at the long period of work, it's hard to believe Cleveland's never been in the Super Bowl. Isn't it? Detroit's never been in the Super Bowl. Mal says Texans got lucky by tanking. So he's bullish at a work like that for every team. No, he kind of that's not what he said. He recognized that the Texans were kind of an anomaly. He just thinks you're better off tanking. No, I just don't agree. Jay Tucker Rafferty, Dennis Allen was never the right hire. You know what? 2020's hindsight. I didn't know you then. I never heard your name before then. Maybe you were saying it. Maybe you weren't. But I guarantee you a vast majority of people, when it happened, said that Dennis Allen. I said it. Larry Holder said it. Most of us said it. Again, I don't know you. You may have been saying don't do it. I know people that did say I don't want Dennis Allen. But if you go back in time, most people, and I mean most, not some, I was doing this show then, most people said Dennis Allen was not only the right hire, but kind of the only hire to really go with. You know who, if it wasn't Dennis Allen, you know who people wanted? You want to go back in time and play the hindsight game? Where this team would be? You know who people wanted if it wasn't going to be Dennis Allen? Eric Bieniemy. How do you think that would have worked out? Not well. PBM says Carr is more talented than Eli. You know what? I don't know, man. I'm biased when it comes to the Mannings, their hometown dudes. I mean, Eli's a Hall of Famer. Is Derek Carr going to be a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. I don't know. Who Dat Daddy says he thinks he's going also. I don't think they're going to keep him. I'm not. Who are you talking about? Talking about Carr? I mean, y'all might be right. Gabe says neither are Hall of Famers to him. I think Eli's a Hall of Famer. Again, would I be shocked if he doesn't help make the Hall of Fame? I'd be surprised. Let's say that. Teams in similar situations. Jay Tucker Rafferty. Cleveland, the Saints, Indy, Titans, Seattle, Raiders, Giants, Jets, Pittsburgh, Rams, 49ers. 49ers aren't in. They sucked last year, but they're not in football purgatory. Charles Manga says we're giving him a headache. Don't tank. What else we got? Who Dat Daddy says, thank you, Gabe. Have a great day. He was on your side. No doubt. Who Dat Daddy says he couldn't stand the Allen hire. Okay. You're in the minority on that one. Just saying. It's just funny how people come out of the woodwork and say, Dennis Allen, that was a terrible hire. It's not what it was like back then. Chad Gage has one thing for sure. Thank God we are in a division which gives us a chance every year. How long is that going to last, though? Because divisions change as you look at it. I mean, there was a long time, okay, when the Patriots were winning all those Super Bowls. If you think about it, go back in time. There was quite a long period of time where it was the Patriots and everybody else, and no one was ever going to have even a chance to win that division because Buffalo was, I don't even know if they were mediocre. They sucked. The Jets, well, they were like good and bad. Mark Sanchez and Butt Fumble, they were okay for a little while. Miami was always mediocre. Divisions change. If you think about the AFC West, before Mahomes got there, Denver was always decent. Other people I mean, that changes. So I don't know much longer that's going to last. Gabe says, I think the Colts have an AFC East title more recently than the Jets. Maybe because the Patriots was so damn good for so long. Anyway. Nick Moss, Uncle Big Nick. Carr could have won a Super Bowl with the Giants on Giants team that Eli won 2 on, maybe. Charles, the Saints were in the NFC West. It was terrible every year. I'm not sure what you're remembering because the Niners were always good and the Rams were usually good. The Saints and Falcons sucked. Anyway, we got to wrap it up. This has been a healthy, spirited, fun debate. Okay. And Mark says Yahoo just announced salary cap will be between 277 and 281 million. That's good for the Saints because I think they were projecting it to be, we were thinking before it's going to be somewhere around 272. In fact, let me go to, before we go off the air, I'm going to go to Spoke Track. And we're going to look at the salary cap for 20. All right, last year it was 255.4 million. Okay. Right now, the Saints are at, where are we? Total cap allocations. Saints are at 339 million. Yikes. So if it's 280, still 60 million over. Yikes. We'll end on that note. I didn't say we're going to end on a happy note. What did I say a few shows ago? Remember? Without hope. I stole it from Jeff Bagwell in the Astros commercial they had back, I don't know, 25 years ago or so. No, I'm no Astros fan, but this was the greatest line I've ever heard in sports. Without hope, life is meaningless. I've lived that throughout my life, not just in sports. It's true, though, with everything. And your idea of hope may be different than mine. My idea of hope is that the Saints shock the world next year, and Derek Carr is fantastic, and Kellen Moore is the coach of the year. And the Saints make football fun again. That's my hope. Your hope may be that the Saints can be a completely different team 3 years from now, and we completely turn over this roster, and it's a new page, it's a new team, and they go to the Super Bowl 6-7 years from now. Everybody's hope is different, but without hope, life is meaningless. Is it what it is? Preacher man, you are exactly right. Before Tampa won 4 in a row, the Saints won 4 in a row. Who Dat Daddy had a blast today. It's 15 degrees in Dallas. I heard they kept the kids home from school in Dallas. Wind chills below 0. You don't know what to do with yourself today. You can go back and watch the show again when we're off the air. Charles Mangus, great show again. Thank you. I love it, preacher man. We will walk by faith and not by sight. Love it. We're going to take the rest of the week off. Well, no, we're not going to really take off. I am going to work tomorrow. But Friday, I'm taking off. Doing career day at my daughter's school. I'm going to be working on trying to get us a new intro and outro that is not season 4 because we're about to end season 4. We got 2 shows left in season 4. And I know I got Brandon Ingram and the Pels in there. So we're going to rework the intro. Graphics will mostly stay the same. I got to get me a new graphics template, though, when I want to show you a chart, make it a little bit better. If you haven't subscribed to Dattitude YouTube page, please do so. If you're watching on YouTube right now, thumbs up, baby. Give us a like. Give us a like. I don't know why it helps. They say that it does. I don't even know who they is, but they say that it helps. I believe they. So just give us the like if you can. So we won't be back again until next Monday. Again, it's not going to be your typical. It'll be kind of like today and last Monday, where we're going to have a guest. We will still talk to you. I'll have a monologue, talk to you, have a guest, talk more comments. Gabe's going to come on. Who knows what we'll talk about? And then next Wednesday, a week from today, February the 26th, will be the season 4 finale. Now, I will say this with a caveat reminder. If something big happens like with Carr, like they announced they're going to keep him and rework a salary, or if they're going to cut him, or they maybe cut Cam Jordan or whatever, if there's a reason to have a show while I'm on vacation, I'm only going out of town for 3 of the days that I'm gone. I'm going to be doing my Mardi Gras thing. So we may have an impromptu show. If we do, I will let y'all know. Y'all will know ahead of time. I'll put it on the YouTube page. That's another reason to go. You'll click the notifications bell, click the little bell. You'll always know when we're going on the air live. So if we have a surprise show, you'll know about it. But for now, that is going to wrap it up for us. I want to thank Larry Holder. I want to thank Gabe Henderson for the fun little spirited debate. And of course, as always, I thank you. Mono E Wednesday. Again, go subscribe to the YouTube page, click the little bell, receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. And always find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. You can find me on bet.NOLA.com. You can find our Saints insiders, NOLA.com/Saints. Sean says, Ashley in Dallas, school opened, but it was with a delay. I could tell you if it was that cold here, they'd have been closing school here out of, quote, an abundance of caution. Who Dat Daddy says, Who Dat family, got them. Clerleys in the chat. And Chad Gage says, do the Saints don't make excuses, make improvements. That's all we can ask. Amen. I'm with you. Have a fantastic, if you live around New Orleans, it's the first weekend of parades. I'll be out there. I'll be in Mandeville on Friday night. And I'm going to go into the city, I think, on Saturday afternoon. If the weather's nice and it looks pretty good, it's going to be a little chilly. But I think I'm going to go into the city on Saturday during the day. We like to go uptown on that first Saturday of parade season. Y'all have a great weekend of parade season. Stay warm. Stay warm. And we will see you on Monday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.